We have folks trickling in. Good to see everybody. Hello, Jessica. Good to see you as well. Glad you could join us today. So I hope everybody had a chance to kind of look through the classrooms and everything, and just excited to get started for day 2. I don't know. This could be viewed as a little icebreaker, small talk, but I generally am interested in this kind of stuff. But like, what's the weather like where you're from today? That's not just a feeble attempt to make small talk. I am genuinely interested. You could say it out loud, or you could put it in the chat.
It's 35 degrees in McLeod, Oklahoma, rainy. We had about 17 inches of snow in our panhandle. I haven't seen any snow here, but it's a good day to sit by the fire and sip a cup of Earl Grey.
There you go. Did that last night. I had a fire. It was pretty chilly last night here, like 15 or 20 degrees. And
my favorite. I love when it's cold. I know Claire is very much of the nut.
Cindy says it's
hate being cold.
And snowy in Bel Air, Michigan. Yeah, I heard the Midwest is getting slammed right now.
Yeah, the storm that kind of tickled us is hitting them. 61 and sunny.
I love how here when people, my friends back, I'm from the South originally, and my friends ask, they're like, what's the weather like there? And I'm like, it's either going to be crazy cold and snowy or beautiful 60-degree bluebird day, and or 50 degrees, but it feels like it's 70 outside. Like we get pretty lucky with our weather out here.
Oh, I've been seeing all my friends back in Orlando freaking out because it got cold down there, like in the 40s, and they're all like, it's too cold, winter's here, like freaking out. I'm like, guys, it was 15 last night where I am.
I was laughing at some of my friends in Atlanta. They, posted a picture of a few flurries falling, and I was like, oh, ha, 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 so funny. And then I got a Facebook flashback from like 6 years ago when I did the exact same thing, like the next day. Hey, Neil, good to see you. Glad you could join us today. And let's see. And yeah, anybody, you're welcome to test audio and video. Again, I know we're a lot of us have done a lot of Zoom by this point, so. Hello, Sina, good to see you.
Good morning. Or afternoon. It's afternoon, isn't it?
Afternoon.
These days blur into just one big beating. That's what I've gotten used to.
Absolutely.
Hey, Zach, it's good to see you on as well. Zach is one of our NASA at My Library folks. He's an all-star. I mean, you all are all-stars.
Oh, hi.
How's it going in Iowa, Zach?
Living the dream. That's what we're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, Gail was kind of talking about that, in the South, just a hard freeze is noteworthy.
I remember it blew my mind the first winter I spent in Orlando, and they had to bring the helicopters out in order to like hover over orange groves, because that's how they stop it from. And I was so blown away by learning that, like little New England girl. I'm like, wait, you do what to who?
All right, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the slides, and it looks like we're getting right to the top of the hour. So there we go. Give everybody another minute or so to log on. And yeah, we wanted to start today. So let me make sure we are recording, we are screen sharing, we are good to go. All the people watching the recording are going to hear us talk, make small talk about the weather, but that's okay. So welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us for day 2. I imagine some folks will kind of trickle in as we get going. So we'll just kind of start out a little bit slow. So today I kind of want to start to see if anybody had any like aha moments or any reflections from day 1, because we did kind of, not everybody had a chance to share about some of the stuff that was talked about in their breakout room. And I'm going to steal the microphone first and say one thing that our group talked about a lot And it kind of goes maybe a little bit into accessibility or just multiple options is, kits are really popular right now, and kits are a good way to get STEAM programming out to patrons that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a virtual thing. You can do physical kits, obviously, and have physical materials in there. But also having additional resources within the kit. So having videos that you could watch along with the kit. And even if, maybe they don't have great internet, but a video is something that you could kind of buffer, or you don't have to watch live, right? Zoom has a lot of bandwidth issues because you have to have that live interaction. So video kits, different activities, I don't know, maybe including literature and activities and a video in a kit, just, keeping those multiple options. So that's something our group talked about a good bit. Anybody else have anything they would like to share?
So I kind of, with our assignment yesterday, I took some of our programs that we were doing before COVID struck and tried to figure out how I could adjust that to this, form of learning. And, our craft time, it was that kit, putting in a visual and written instruction. So that way you've got those kids that, might not be able to read, but at least they can follow pictures along. And then also giving that video link to a video that you can actually watch someone doing the craft. And I also kind of tried to do the programs as if COVID was still occurring, but also COVID wasn't occurring. So in the classroom, like if we had a group of kids that were doing craft time, instead of just having the table set up with each individual set of objects and instructions, we could have a table like that, but we could also have that buffet table of items where you had other examples of, okay, today we're making gingerbread men. Here's a few examples of what you could do with your gingerbread men. But if you were totally one of those kids that really likes mine looks exactly like the teacher's, you could go sit at that, other table where we had all the stuff laid out for you. And again, the instructions would be pictures and text. And then you could also have a video link. So if you had to leave or you wanted to just take a kit to go, you would be able to access that video later and do the craft at your own pace. So all three of these options gave us the do it at the teacher's pace, do it at your own pace, be as creative as you want, be as non-creative as you want. So just trying to really think about it like that. And craft time is the easiest one to do. And story time, it was, books. We can read the book, but then we can also reenact the book as a group together. So we could have props, we could have costumes, or we could also have storyboards that the kids get to come put pictures or characters that are in the book as they pop up, have them put it on the board. So they're interacting and kind of, getting to be part of that story as well. And you could do the same things with the songs, again, signing or doing in a different language or making those storyboards that the kids can be a part of. So some of these things are things that I was already doing. So I was really proud of myself because I was like, oh yeah, I was like, that is what I've been doing. But seeing it on paper and being like, oh, I could be a little bit more, what's the word, proactive and a little bit more intentional about how I'm doing it. So I was doing it, didn't know, but now that I know, I would be like, oh, okay, well, I could add this part here too as well. So, and now just kind of trying to think about those things. Interesting, not just with programs. I know a lot of people that were in here yesterday were talking about how they're in a rural library, and that's where I am as well, very rural. So not a lot of internet connection. So the YouTube videos, they get watched, but not by many of our patrons. It's more the patrons on the southern part of the county. But what we've tried to do, we were having issues with getting new materials, and patrons in another county being able to place a book on my brand new materials before my little community was able to place those books on hold. And so our patrons weren't getting those materials. So what we started doing was putting the pictures of the books in the window so that they could window browse, so they could come to the door, actually see what we were getting and be able to point it out and call us on the phone, or we had little slips that they could fill out. So if we were closed, they could put it in the book drop and just get them to, get them their books. And so it was like, we have to think about everything in this different way now that COVID is here. So I feel like this is the perfect time to introduce this and like use it for just multiple areas of your life.
That's awesome to hear. Well, thank you for that, Jamie. Jessica, would you mind talking about, I needed to respond to, somebody was having trouble getting into the room, so I was going to respond to that. Would you talk about Abby's comment?
I will. Let me back up just a sec and say, Jamie, it's not, it may be different, but I think that what everybody is experiencing is, in a way, it's kind of different for the better, because it's forcing us to think of other ways to connect with our students or patrons, whoever it is that we're working with. So no, I was just pointing out that, what Abby's comment is here is that, she was struggling with understanding, the concept of the buffet, and she was confusing the buffet with being the line order cook, which was in the video. And, understanding that it's not about making 20 individual meals, which is the thing that it's crazy making when you try to cater up to an individual. I got 3 kids and I'm like, hey, this is what we're having. I'm not going to make 3 different meals for my kids. But if you provide a buffet so that there are options to choose from, then you as the individual, your patron, can go in and they can actually create their meal based on what is there at the buffet. So that was a great comment. Thanks so much, Abby.
All right, awesome, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and get us moving along. Get the slides back up. I'm just gonna start out talking about the agenda today, and then we'll turn things over to Sina. All right. So yeah, just a heads up, Sina's gonna be talking about guideline rows. We're gonna just kind of introduce that idea, and we'll do some deeper self-exploration for that. For then we're gonna go into breakout rooms with guideline rows. I hope y'all saw my message on the Google Classroom. If you're not able to select your own room, I'll be in the main room kind of directing people for that. And if you decide that you want to switch, but you're not able to do it yourself, just pop back out to the main room. I'll put you in the room that you would like for that. But we'll explain that again when we get there. We'll do some self-reflection after those guideline rows. And then we'll kind of spend a lot of time doing an ecosystem of resources, breakout room, round table. I'm not sure what the best word is, but basically you can pop in different breakout rooms and hear about just different resources to support you moving forward. We will close out today with just a couple of notes, and then some of us are going to stick around for about 15 minutes just to try and answer any questions you have, or just kind of keep the conversation going if you'd like to. So we'll be around afterwards for that. And we'll go ahead and turn things over to Sina. Sina, would you like me to drive the slides?
That would be wonderful, Brooks.
All right. Or should I go on to the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so a little recap from yesterday. This is the guidelines for Universal Design for Learning. So yesterday we spent some time talking about the principles. So these are the vertical columns, the green, the purple, and the blue there. So the first column there is engagement. That's the first principle. The second principle is representation. And the third principle then is action and expression. All of the individual, those 9 boxes in that matrix are the guidelines. But you'll notice that to the left there are some little tabs that sort of identify the theme of those rows. So these are the guideline rows that I'm going to talk a little bit about today to highlight what that theme is and how it is demonstrated across the different principles. And then I'm going to give you some time to explore the checkpoints. So the checkpoints are awesome because if you find yourself at any point going, how am I supposed to do that? The checkpoints will give you suggestions for how to implement those UDL principles into your programming. And so we'll give you some time at the end to explore some of those checkpoints. And then based off of your exploration, we'll be doing some facilitated discussions in the breakout rooms. Next, please. Thank you. All right, so I want to take a look at the first row. So this is all about providing access. So how we do that is going to be different across the principles. We'll just kind of start on the left and we'll move to the right. You'll notice that the way this is organized, it's kind of like the typical progression of a lesson. So we start with engagement, and then we move to representation, sort of the content, and then we talk about how do we express our knowledge. And so, well, recruiting interest. So recruiting interest is essential to engagement because information that's not attended to that doesn't engage the learner's cognition isn't really accessible. So in order to make it accessible for the learner, they have to choose to engage. In the second principle, representation, the first guideline is about how the information is perceived by the brain. So our senses are constantly receiving information, but only the stuff that we pay attention to makes it into our working memory. And so learners need the information sort of brought into focus to their senses so that they can perceive it. Otherwise, it's inaccessible. And then for action and expression, we look at the physical aspect of access. So is it a textbook where the interaction is turning pages? Is it a worksheet where the interaction is writing? Is it a digital interaction where they're using the keyboard? So it's just important to provide materials that all learners can interact with. So the first two principles here focus on how to access the information sort of cognitively. And the third principle talks about the actual physical interface. Next. All right, so the second guideline row is about building. So this is really about building skills. So in engagement, we talk about sustaining effort and persistence. So many kinds of learning, especially when we're trying to learn new skills, require sustained effort. And so people who are motivated can actually sort of moderate their own effort to maintain the concentration that's required to learn the skills. But the ability to do that differs greatly across learners. And so a key instructional goal is actually to help students or learners build their own ability to self-regulate. But in the meantime, when they're not quite there, this is about providing an environment that gives options for learners that support that initial motivation so that they can persist. In representation, this is about building a learner's capacity to make sense of information. So one person may be able to look at a graph and instantly grasp what the data is telling them, whereas another person may be completely lost. And so we want to ensure that alternative representations are provided, not just for accessibility, but for clarity and also to aid comprehension for all learners. And then in action and expression, this building is about giving students options for how they can express what they know. So how do they want to solve the problem? How do they want to communicate mastery of a skill? And it's important to remember here that we want to provide support for whatever options are given, because if there isn't any support for that option, it's not really an option. It becomes inaccessible. Next. So the last one here is internalize. So this is, as I was reading it, I think the most difficult one for me. And that makes sense because it's really the last stage. So you've made it accessible, you've helped them to build the skills, and now this is the turning it over to them for them to internalize and be able to sort of guide their own learning. And this is where the checkpoints, I think, are super helpful for me, at least. Because as I read these, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are they supposed to do that? But all the framework is there. So this is about developing learners' intrinsic abilities to regulate their own motions and, their own motivation and emotion in the engagement category. In comprehension, this is about teaching learners how to transform accessible information into usable knowledge. So we know from decades of cognitive science research that it's actually it's not a passive process, but an active one when we turn that sort of information into actual knowledge. So transferring it from our working memory into the long-term memory is a conscious process. And we know that there's really two ways to do that. We can do it through repetition, or we can do it through relation. So, and relation is much more effective. So if we can help learners here to make meaning of it by tying the information that they're given to existing knowledge, then they can also use that to demonstrate their mastery by solving problems, or how they can actually use that knowledge to solve problems. And then the last one, action and expression. This is really high level when I think about it. This is about acting skillfully. So it's about overcoming impulsive short-term reactions to their environment, whether that's somebody in the next room, or it's an environmental factor that's bothering them. Maybe there's some noise, or they're uncomfortable, or whatever. It's about being able to actually overcome those impulsive reactions, the ability to set long-term goals, to plan effective strategies for reaching those goals, to monitor their own progress, and to modify strategies as needed. And so the role here from the teacher or the library staff perspective is about helping students decide which option is best for them, and in each situation, and then also encouraging them to reflect on their performance. Next. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to explore the checkpoints now. So can you flip back just a slide, Brooks? Thank you. So you'll notice in this, the little bullet points here are the checkpoints. And each of those checkpoints will give you suggestions for how to reach the checkpoints. So if we go to the website, Brooks, next, udlguidelines.cast.org. This is also in the Google Classroom if you'd like to access it that way. And I'm going to pop it into, oh, thanks, Jess, just popped it into the chat. Awesome. So if you go there, this is going to be an interactive guideline matrix where you can click on the individual guidelines, and then it will give you information on the checkpoints. And you will want to make sure that you kind of scroll down, because I think on some of them it gives you just the first checkpoint. And then if you scroll down, you'll see information for additional checkpoints. So I want to give you a little bit of time to explore these. Anything that interests you, so whatever you are working on towards your summer programming, any of the guidelines that would be applicable for you, just kind of look through them and try to get some ideas about what you could use in like what relates to your programming. And this will help sort of guide us in the breakout rooms in the next session. So don't wander away in the 5 minutes that we give you. This is a free time. So, and then when you come back, we will go into breakout rooms. So shall we start a timer? How much time are we going to give them, Brooks?
Oh, I mean, do you think 5 minutes is good?
I think that's good.
All right, I'm just gonna do it on my watch. Maybe I don't know if there's a built-in timer function on Zoom. So, yeah, we're starting now. And y'all, when you come back, if you are a little bit late, all right. If you are a little bit late, then I'll be in the main room and I can assign you to different breakout rooms. So don't worry about that. Hey, Jennifer, just to answer your question, we're just doing some self-exploration on the guideline rows. Let me pull back up the slide for you. Just kind of looking at our own pace, and we'll come back together in just a few minutes. And we'll be going into breakout rooms after that. All right, everybody, if you want to start coming back into our main room. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up our breakout rooms. If you can self-select into a breakout room, great. Go ahead and do that. If you can't, please change, so you can rename yourself through Zoom, right? And just add a letter for one of which room, A, B, I, O, or C, that you'd like to go to. So if I wanted to go to the checkpoints room, I would just rename myself and I would do C-Brooks. If you put it in the chat, it'll just take a lot longer for me to get you in there. I will eventually funnel you in there. I'm going to be in the main room the whole time. So again, if you need to pop out, if you want to change rooms and you can't do it, just come into the main room, send me a message, or I'll see you come in there and I'll reassign you. So a lot of options for reassigning. Again, if you want to put, instead of putting it in the chat, just actually change your name. If you click on the participant button, you could get your name, I believe, hit rename, change it to the one you want. I'm about to open up all the rooms. And I'll probably be explaining this for a couple more times too. So just feel free to go ahead and go into your rooms. I'll be in here to kind of guide you all. Oh, you're right, Jessica. This is a lot easier if it's at the beginning of their name. Just to give everybody a heads up, I did give a 25-minute countdown for this as well. So again, there's about, let's see. Hey, Jennifer, yep, I'll put you in build. Barbara, I'll put you in build. Beth, I'm gonna put you in I. And Cheryl, Kim, and Susan, I'm happy to, if you're not sure which one you want to join, I'm happy to suggest one for you.
Can you throw me, this is Kim, into build? My computer's like super slow right now.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah, got it.
Thanks.
Yeah, Susan, let me put you in checkpoints. It's about going through those individual checkpoints. If I put you in, it might be easier. But if not, then it's too slow. Okay, well, let me try to put you in there. And then if you turn off your video, that might give you a little bit more bandwidth with your internet connectivity too. So.
Hey, Brooks, I didn't have
Hey.
anyone in my room.
Oh, okay.
It looks like Jessica's got a bunch of people, so I might just pop in there and help support her.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Everything's running smooth out here. And I did set a Sina, just a timeline or a timer, so there's 22 minutes left.
I saw that. Nice work.
Thanks. Hey, Kevin. No. Kevin, I don't know if you just joined, but we're doing, everybody's in breakout rooms right now.
Yeah, no, I joined as Jennifer last time, so she had two of us, I think.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So she had sent me the thing. So I just rejoined as myself. So hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good.
So
do you want to put you in a breakout room?
Yeah.
We can just talk out here if you want, but.
Well, I missed yesterday because I was stuck at another library doing something. So I suppose I should go through the overview because I'm not entirely certain what universal design learning is exactly. I mean, I kind of have an idea. But. So
actually, nobody went into the overview room. So that facilitator jumped into a different one. I could probably send her. Well, so I can give you like just a basic overview of not being an expert at all.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, yeah. So basically it's like, say it again.
I trust you.
No, I wouldn't. No. It's essentially, okay, you're providing a buffet of menu options for your patrons, right? We know that patrons don't all learn in the same way. And so you've probably heard us talk about the guide on the side stuff and that being a really good way to facilitate. But UDL is going to be more like, okay, guide on the side is one avenue of facilitation, but you might also have people that enjoy that lecture series. You might have people that are really just can't visually connect or have auditory problems. So it's like, it's about providing a lot of accessibility, right? So like a lot of entry points to learning experiences. Again, providing that buffet. And it's also about providing ways, so providing entry points, different entry points, and then finding ways for people to be able to actually express themselves and engage with the activity. So it's just like, there's different layers of how you can provide different options for people. Would be my basic, most simple understanding. In the video, she talks about you're having 20 friends over for dinner. You don't just make one meat casserole and assume that's going to serve everybody. The best thing to possibly do is to find out like, well, maybe we have some vegetarian folks. Maybe we have some, to put all the ingredients out there and let them self-assemble it themselves to a certain degree.
So
like
I think for programming, that would translate as like maybe having different activities going on at the same time that
Yeah.
people can then sort of choose. I mean, is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, that's a pretty close to it. We talked a lot about like how to do this in COVID and how COVID is kind of sometimes making us do this already. So I think if you want to do a program about, so we're kind of coming at this from like summer 2021, Tales and Tales, or I don't know if that's what y'all are doing too, but so, I want to say I'm going to do an experience about like an animal. I want to teach kids about a dog or something like that. I might one day, I'm saying that because my dog is scratching on the door right now. One day I might have a canine therapy group come and have that hands-on interactive experience. The other day I might have a biologist speak to the class. The other day I might do an interactive activity, or if you could, lump them all in at the same time, that's really good too. But with COVID, like one thing we talked about yesterday is like, how do you do this? Especially accessibility, thinking about virtual programs. And we like went back to kits a lot, like being like, people just don't have access to internet like you or me do. I can log on to Zoom anytime, but not everybody in rural communities can do that. So one way they're accessing the libraries is, kits. And we talked about ways you could provide different learning opportunities within one kit. So again, let's say you're doing a kit about a dog. You could have a interactive activity. Maybe you build a dog out of Legos. And then you could have a video that patrons could watch. And even if they do have, low internet, it's a little bit better than a Zoom program where you have to have really high bandwidth. And then you could have, maybe a book or I don't know, just options. Yeah, this definitely isn't something I was super familiar with about ahead of time. And really what I've taken away from it is just like options for learning are really, really good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And then those checkpoints were, because I pulled up those guidelines.
Yeah.
And all of those different clickable links are the checkpoints you guys were talking about, I assume.
Yes. Yeah. So the guideline rows are just kind of a way, the checkpoints are a way for you to be like, okay, this is kind of high level, but how am I actually doing it?
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Can I put you, do you want me to put you into that room or?
Sure. Let's do that.
Okay.
And thank you. That was very helpful.
The accessibility and access one might be the most obvious to you, but I think checkpoints might be the most tangible.
Yeah, let's do that because I mean, internalize overview. Yeah, let's just do the checkpoints one.
Okay, and I can call Cena back out too to chat with you.
No, it's all right. No, you did the overview perfectly.
All right, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, see you in 15.
Uh-huh.
Hey, buddy. Okay. You're a good dog. gotta say, it was kind of weird just sitting here for 30 minutes. I wanted to join in with y'all.
You took a nap, didn't you?
No, I just pet my dog and ate a Cliff Bar, and then I realized I'll be on the recording talking to my dog, but that's okay.
How in the world was that 30 minutes? I did not just talk for 30 minutes.
Well, it's 25 if that makes you feel any better, but
Now I just said my room was boring because all I did was talk. I'm sorry. Room B, I'm so sorry.
were you getting the notifications on time from me? Okay, cool.
Yep, it was perfect. Appreciated that. And you set a timer. I needed that.
Yeah, the timer was really helpful. I was like, oh, now I know how much time we have.
Awesome.
Apparently,
Well, everybody,
when you share your screen, you can't share those things because I'm like, Brooks, let me know when.
See, I shared my screen and I still had it.
yeah.
It's because you have a
Zoom
Mac,
101.
Annie.
Gillian, I like your comment. He's sitting right next to me.
Those
So
are- Fighting words, Stephanie. Fighting words. Annie, I thought I couldn't see it either, and then I realized that it's actually it's kind of hidden because it's also red in the share toolbar.
Oh.
Mhm.
So y'all surprisingly we're right on time with our agenda, which is awesome. So I believe the next step, and Sina, if you want to jump in and cut me off, that's totally fine. But I believe the next step is for us to take another 5 minutes to go self-reflect in your UDL journey document about some of the stuff you just talked about, anything that you could take and move forward from there. So again, just like, 5 minutes of your alone time to self-reflect. When you come back, we are, oh yeah, that's completely fine, Susan. Susan was just asking if she could keep on working on the stuff in the classroom to finish work after the sessions. And unless I'm mistaken, I think that's completely fine. You should have access to those classrooms. So yeah, anyway, when we come back from that self-reflection, we're gonna go into another breakout room. And what you can do for this one, just to give you an idea of what we're gonna be talking about in this one, I don't wanna load your brain up too much right now, but we're gonna be talking about resources that you can take and move forward to help you do UDL at your library from here on out. So same thing, we'll put you into rooms, but you can jump around as much as you want. I will be in the main room for that one, doing a session on Guide on the side. So anyway, after we come back from our 5 minute break or 5 minute self-reflecting, it's not a break, I'll talk a little bit more about this and then we'll go into these breakout rooms as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and start my watch now, 5 minutes. Let's come back at 1:58 and we'll go into some other breakout rooms.
Brooks, my brain thinks that during this 5 minute break, we should have like Enya playing. That's what my brain is doing right now.
Can you sing?
I am not going to sing. No, I can't sing, and no, I won't sing. I'm gonna head to my next call. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Annie. Again, if you're just wondering, if you're like, why isn't anybody talking right now? You should be doing some self-reflection or self-documentation in your UDL journey document. We'll come back together in just 2 minutes at 1:58 before we go into our breakout rooms. This is my quiet teacher voice, while everybody's self-reflecting. I had somebody asking me to just, wait, what document is this again? And it's the UDL journey document that you kind of created. But, at the end of the day, this is to help you. And so whatever helps you the most. If you just want to write down on a piece of paper, that's, just however you're going to set yourself up for success. But you're welcome to continue doing that if you'd like to still, document your journey in UDL. But I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. And I just want to give everybody a heads up. Again, the first 4 breakout rooms here, we're going to do the same thing, but instead of letters, we're going to do numbers this time, right? So put a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 by your name if you're not able to select your own breakout room. If you want to join the guide on the side session with me, just stay in this main room. That's where that's taking place. If you want to join one of the other breakout rooms, put yourself in there, or I will shuffle you in there. If you put it at the beginning of your name, that makes it a lot easier for me to put you in there.
Can I interrupt real quick before you all do that?
Yeah.
Don't sweat if you're like, oh, but I want to go to this one and that one and this one. We're all going to be repeating our content multiple times. So you can flow in and out from the different sessions, whatever interests you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you jump into a room, there's not a ton of us. So if you jump into a room and you're like, hey, can you just take a couple of steps back? Happy to do that as well. Go ahead and start assigning folks. Or if I accidentally put you in the wrong room, please pop right back out, let me know. And if you are in the room with me, if you want to talk about Guideline on the side, it will be just a couple of minutes while I put everybody into rooms, and then we can get started with ours. And I may have to stop a couple of times to help other people, but that's okay. So Gillian, I see you have a 5. Sorry, Jillian. We literally talked about this beforehand. I see you have a 5, so I'm going to keep you in here. I also have so far, okay, Cassie, I'm going to put you in 1. Amanda, Amber, Jillian, Barbara, Beth, Christina, Nicolette, Christine, Rachel, and Susan. Let me put you in 2. Yeah, so if you're...
This is Cindy, and I wanted to be in 2, and you assigned me to 1. Can you assign me to 2?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you.
All right, awesome, y'all. So I'm going to pull up some slides. I just want to talk to you about this idea of being a guide on the side. And I'm kind of curious. I guess you could give me a thumbs up. Have you heard of this phrase before, being a guide on the side?
Nope.
Seeing some no shake heads. Cool, awesome. Oh, that's great. All right, here we go. Sorry, let me just keep myself all set up. So the idea of being a guide on the side is really about not being the holder of information. One thing I really love about library staff and working with library staff is that y'all aren't scientists. You're not, you know, I've talked to a lot of library staff that have these wonderful, you know, they have a science background, or they have, you know, they do have some scientific content knowledge. But really, your job is not to be a subject matter expert, you know, unless we're talking specifically about circulation or literature or early childhood literacy. Your job is just to be a facilitator, right? You bring people together, you create programs, you're not necessarily a planetary geologist, but you could bring in a planetary geologist and maybe facilitate a really fun hands-on activity that asked a bunch of open-ended questions. So if you'll bear with me just 1 second, I had some slides to pull up. And I want to ask you, and this can be just a reflective question, but I want you to think about one STEAM learning experience that really stands out to you. Is there a STEAM learning experience that really stands out to you in your life? You don't have to, you can answer in the chat. I'll say something to me that stands out, but you can also just think about this as we move along. So we'll, you know, sit on this for about 1 minute or so. So this could be like a classroom experience. This could be a field trip. This could be something not school or library related at all. Just think about that one strong positive learning experience. For me, I think, gosh, I go back to one of my intro science classes. We talked about, I was like a film major or something like that. And I did a geology class, and we talked about solar panels. And the guy actually brought out a solar panel and was going through the different parts of how it worked and photovoltaic cells and things like that. And it really, I just like seeing it in person really was like, oh, this is really cool. This is alternative energy is really, really, really awesome. And it got me really excited about it. So that's mine. So yeah, get that in your brain. Just think about it as we're talking about some of this stuff today. Okay, so I want to point out some resources. We do have all of this information on our website, starnetlibraries.org/resources/guide on the side. And I'll pop that in the classrooms as well. I'm not sure if it's explicitly in there or not. But we have a whole lot of different resources for this. We have videos we've made. We just were published in an article through the Association of Library Services to Children about Guide on the Side. So there's a ton of resources at your disposal. And if you're like, you can't find it, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send you in the right direction. So we talk about 3 different learning facilitation styles within this Guide on the Side. We have Sage on the Stage, and these are just kind of fun names that we use. We have Trivia Master, and we have Guide on the Side. We are pushing library staff to practice Guide on the Side facilitation styles, as we think it's a more open, accessible, and I don't know, inclusive is a heavy word, but I think it is more, yeah, I'll say inclusive of more learning styles as well. So this is a little flow chart. This is just an example to help you figure out what kind of facilitation style you do use. And again, this is available on our website. Everything we have is free. And this is the article I was talking about. We were published in the ALSC, their most recent fall version or journal. So I want you all to look at this picture really quick and tell me, when you look at this picture, what do you see? And you could respond in the chat, you could unmute as well, but just take a few minutes, look at the picture, tell me what you see. Okay, Jillian says disengagement, definitely. People doing their own thing and their attention is fractured. Some of the adults aren't engaging. I'm looking at this dude in the middle, yeah. And you guys see some phones out. Now, is everybody disengaged or are people still engaged? Hey, oh, that's actually a good point. A shared digital experience. That's a good point, Jillian. It could be like synchronous. But let's assume that kid's playing Candy Crush, you know? So yeah, we see a lot of disengagement. I do see, you know, 1 or 2 people. The woman with the blonde hair, the girl with the blonde hair, they seem somewhat engaged, but yeah. So just thinking about that, this is what we would call like a sage on the stage, right? We have one person, they are the holder of information and they are providing a one-way delivery of information. In situations, this might be good. Maybe like, you know, if you're giving out safety information, you're not trying to have a discussion about, if you're trying to tell kids how to, you know, safely exit in case of a fire alarm or something like that. Yeah, maybe that's good for sage on the stage. And some people are drawn to this. I can sit through a lecture on a topic that interests me and be talked to. But for the most part, I just want to make sure I've got everybody. For the most part, this is not an inclusive, great, accessible way of learning. If you think about kids that maybe don't have long attention spans. I also recognize that right now I'm kind of doing Sage on the Stage by talking at you. So I know there's a little bit of irony there. But so yeah, in Sage on the Stage, the focus is on the instructor. The instructor delivers a lecture and the audience are passive listeners. So I had a little example here of I got to pull up my notes for it though, of an example of Sage on the Stage. So if I'm talking about the Earth and the Moon and I'm a Sage on the Stage, and I'm just completely reading from notes here, but I would say maybe, the current scientific hypothesis holds that our moon was created by a giant collision between an object in space and the Earth. When they collided, the smaller object shattered and its remains were blown into space or incorporated into the Earth. Over a short time, 100 years or less, the leftover debris clumped together and formed our moon. Over the time, the moon went through many transformations as iron layers sank and formed its core, and asteroids and comets pummeled its surface, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So that's an example of Sage on the Stage. If you have a lot of interest in this topic, like you might be gripped and really interested, but for entry level learning, it's not a great pathway. All right. Hide my notes. All right, so I want to look at this picture now and tell me what you notice, with this picture. Again, if you want to talk, that's fine, or if you want to do chat.
It seems like there's more engagement, but you still have those kids that are just like, whatever.
Yep, I mean, we have some kids that they have their hands up and they're making the ooh, ooh, ooh face, which I think we all know pretty well. And we all know that usually it's the same kid that that answers that way. So yeah, we're seeing some of that same stuff, right? So some engagement, not a ton of engagement. Is the facilitator using anything else different this time around?
Yeah, she has visuals. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Three-dimensional visuals.
Three-dimensional tactile visuals, right? So especially if you can get that in the hands of the kids, that would be really awesome. But yeah, we still see some kids, maybe this girl in the front left. Yeah, there you go, Jillian. Wants to engage, but maybe is a little hesitant, right? So like something's working in her brain, but maybe it's not quite, doesn't have the platform to speak. So this is what I would call, it's called initiation response evaluation in educational terms, but we call it Trivia Master just to give it a more fun name. But thinking about this, the facilitators are going to ask closed questions. Okay, we love questions. Questions are great, but closed questions, what am I holding here? Kind of what I did with, well, not really, but like, how far apart are the moon and the Earth? No, that's the wrong answer. Moving on, who has another answer? Like those kinds of questions, I guess. The facilitator in this instance really controls the discussion as well, right? So the discussion is really flowing through the facilitator. If he or she wants to continue in one specific area or arena, then that's the direction that the conversation is going to go. And lastly, the facilitator does the majority of the talking. In this situation, patrons recall, they list, they recite, they label, and they're rewarded for correct answers. I'll leave this up on the screen just for a minute. And I'm happy to just say I've done a full webinar about this, an hour-long webinar. I'm happy to post that in the classrooms as well. So again, we call this Trivia Master Initiation Response Evaluation. And I want to give you just a little quick example of what that's like. Oops. Okay, so in this image, what do you see on the left? Anybody answering? Sorry, I can't. I'm trying to pull up my chat to see if anybody answered, but
The Earth.
there we go. Thank you. I appreciate you. If y'all could just say it right now. The Earth. Correct. Right. Okay. So what do you see on the right?
Moon.
The moon. Okay, yes, correct. So let's see. Are there any active volcanoes on the moon?
We cannot see that. I mean, we could know that, but I see where you're going with this.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I have a whole list of questions. How fast is the Earth moving through space? What is the circumference of Earth? What kind of rocks is the moon made of? And these are very yes, no, specific answer questions. If you get them right, I'm going to reward you. I'm going to say great job. If you get them wrong, I'm going to say something like no, try again. No, does anybody else know? Okay, so very straightforward. I'm controlling the discussion. You are just trying to get the right answer out. And instead of trying to actually have an aha moment, you're just trying to kind of appease me and give me what I want to hear as a facilitator, which, I think there's a time and a place for that, and it's a better direction than Sage on the Stage, I think, but it's still not quite getting to there. So these next few slides, I think a lot of people think about science as a collection of facts. And to me, science and even STEM, I know that's kind of a broad statement, there's so much more than just a collection of facts. So yeah, it's about exploration, okay? It's about exploring new things, trying to understand new things. It's about inquiry as well, right? Asking questions. Questions are good. You want patrons to be asking you questions, even if you don't know the answer. That shows that they're learning, that they're processing. It's also about creativity, right? Coming up with creative solutions to solving problems. Obviously, I love the scientific method and everything like that, but I think that kind of gets people stuck a little bit in the same cycle. I almost prefer using the engineering design process, which is all about revisions and doing it again and failure being a good thing, right? So we really want to kind of, curiosity, exploration, excitement, creativity. These are all things that science is about to me. So we're going to go to another image, and you guys all know what I'm doing here, but yeah, tell me what you think about this image and what do you notice with this? Sorry, I'm just now getting the chat. So yeah, who gets to participate in this situation? Yeah, hands-on collaborative, Barbara says.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everyone's participating, right? And granted, this is just 2 people, but they are actively hands-on participating in this activity. What's the facilitator's role? That's not me.
Well, he's standing back there with his, hand on his chin, and he is kind of looking like he might be evaluating them.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's not really, I guess if we're thinking ideally, the facilitator would be looking around and seeing how people are interacting with those things and then giving them the chance to talk about what they're doing and ask them questions, that sort of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could in this situation be evaluating. I'm a little biased because I hired an illustrator to make these images and told them exactly what I wanted it to convey. So,
whoops, I'm sorry.
No, they're totally loaded prompts here. But no, you're right. So, but he's standing back, they're participating. I like what Amy says, that the facilitator kind of looks like he wants to participate too. And I've definitely been in some programs where that happens, where I'm like, you know what, let's just build Legos together or Kiva planks or whatever.
He is smiling, and I guess the hand on his chin is indicating that he's thoughtful. I probably just have some latent fear of teachers looking over my shoulder and judging me.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially that power dynamic is totally a thing too, right? If somebody's standing over you, yeah. So yeah, but this is just an example. These are just illustration examples for me to use in situations just like this of showing you an example of guide on the side, right? Because it's kind of a hard thing to visualize. But in a guide on the side facilitation strategy, you are stepping back, you are letting the patrons explore, learn themselves, and you're stepping in to not provide facts, but to provide like open-ended questions, to provide thought prompts, if you will. So I have some like really concrete strategies to do guide on the side kind of learning, and I'll go ahead and get into them. I just want to show you, these are some fun pictures of kids doing guide on the side. And I'm showing you these to say that it's like really, a lot of it has to do with the activity that you've chosen. If you're doing like, I don't know, like a book report or something like that, I know a librarian wouldn't probably do that, but then that doesn't lend itself really to guide on the side. Or if you're doing a demo, right? So think about demos, that's really popular in library and just informal education units, right? So, oh, let me make a volcano real quick, or let me make a cloud in a bottle, or show you, yeah, I don't know, some type of scientific principle. Demos are great, but demos, not everybody gets to participate. They're still kind of just viewing things. So active hands-on activities where everybody gets to participate. And I like to shy away from competition as well. That can work in some great, having competitive activities, your team versus this team, but I think it also scares away a lot of people, especially thinking about young girls, young women. Like, I know, there might be just not that a positive response to a competitive activity. So a few more fun images. This is from African American Research Library and Cultural Center in Broward County, Florida, High Plains Library District. But they're all doing this activity where you use Play-Doh, you use conductive dough, and you're trying to create a circuit, right? So you're creating this giant circuit that everybody can connect into. And instead of just going there and saying, well, you need to connect this to this, and here's your insulator. The fun in this activity, because then that would be just 1 minute and they would be done. The fun in this activity is having the kids or the patrons explore themselves and make those connections literally and figuratively themselves. Okay, so here's some actual concrete strategies. And yeah, so step one, just create a safe learning environment where everybody feels confident being able to share. So that also means if you have don't present yourself as the expert. If a kid asks you a question that you don't know, get excited and say, oh, I don't know, that's a great question. Let's find out together. Or if somebody has a thought that maybe isn't quite in line and it maybe isn't the correct answer, instead of saying no and moving on, say, that's an interesting thought. How did you come up with that idea? So encouraging those kind of, maybe off the beaten path, ideas. So open-ended questions would be strategy 2. So I love this example. What do you notice? I use that all the time. Even, if I'm hanging out with my 4-year-old nephew, I'm always using that strategy of just having somebody, if they say something, having them actually explain, how did they notice that? Tell me more about that. I thought there were some more examples here, but yeah, so open-ended questions are a great way to kind of get the conversation starting. When somebody says something that maybe sparks your interest, let them elaborate on it. Ask them to elaborate, ask them to kind of expand on that. Strategy 3, and this is one I've been using, and it can work really, really, really well in a virtual setting, and that is wait time. So we looked at that image, yeah, this one, right? And we see the kid in the back making the ooh, ooh face. And again, like I said, that kid's probably making that ooh, ooh face a lot at every question. And then we have this learner in the very front, this young lady, and she looks kind of a little bit confused, but or just like she doesn't have the chance to talk. But as we wait, let's see, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. We'll say if you give her the opportunity to think about things and then raise her hand, I guess what I'm trying to say is giving people, just don't call in the first person. Give those deep thinkers, those people that don't automatically have an answer, time to process the question, time to think, and so on. So that 5-second wait time is what I tend to use virtually, especially if you're doing virtual programs. It takes a lot of time for somebody to get something in the chat box or to think about what they want to say, to unmute, to start their video, so that process takes time. Make sure you're giving enough people time to think about the question, to answer the question, and don't always call on the first person. Oh, here we go. And it can be really uncomfortable at first, but ultimately, a few times in this training, I've asked questions and I've kind of waited and I've been like, oh, I just want to jump in and say it. But if you do that, it really, it becomes more and more comfortable over time. Strategy 4 that I really like is turn and talk. So instead of asking somebody, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Having them share with each other, with other patrons, can be a really, really helpful strategy. So that way, this is also a good kind of management style. If you have a program with 30 kids and you can't possibly hear everybody's ideas when you ask a question, yeah, just have them turn and talk to their neighbor or to their fellow patron, and that's just a good way to get the conversation going. That's an example of that. This one, help each other figure this out. Take your time. I will come back in a few minutes to see how you're doing, right? So if you let those kids kind of problem solve themselves, and maybe one of them, they kind of come to a conclusion. If not, you can come back and you can intervene and you can help get them back on the right track. But yeah, letting kids fail sometimes is a really, really great learning tool. And lastly, just a few shameless plugs. Choosing good activities is a really important part of this as well. So our clearinghouse has over 500 activities, all designed for the library setting or really, really good in the library setting. So these aren't school activities. They're not even museum activities. They're kind of set up to do guide on the side facilitation. So we definitely encourage you to check that out. This other one, oh, sorry, Jillian. Sorry, I just realized there were a bunch of questions coming in. What are they making with the clay? Yeah, the squishy circuits activity. How do you signal the wait time and when do you start it? That's a great question, Susan. So let's say I'm going to ask you all a question. I'm going to say, what do you think of this training? So I would say, okay, y'all, so I have a question for you. I'm going to give you time to think about it, but what was your overall impression of this training? And then in my head, I start counting. Literally, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And usually after about 5 seconds, those connections happen in their brain, and you'll start to see hands going up. So it's not necessarily like, hey, I'm waiting 5 to 10 seconds. It's something you kind of have to do internally. And Jillian's asking, how do you redirect things when people cast you as Sage or Trivia Master when you're conducting a program as a guide? Yeah, so in Jillian, like definitely you might go in and out of some of those different roles as you're doing this. So there might be something that you just have to sit down and explain to people, right? And that's okay. So it's not easy, right? And it can be a struggle to be a guide on the side and to kind of go back into those Sage or Trivia Master things. Even as I'm talking about guide on the side, I still go back into Sage or Trivia Master. So I think it's okay to kind of float in between those different strategies if you need to, or if you find yourself going back to Sage, or if you find yourself going back to Trivia Master. Gosh, I feel like I'm not answering your question very well. I'm sorry. It's okay just to kind of like, reassess and be like, okay, I'm gonna try to get back into this.
It's kind of fluid.
Yes, thank you. Words. I'm also watching the countdown happen as I'm trying to talk. So another thing, and I'm not sure if this is as much guide on the side, but just if you find common and shared experiences for patrons, I think that's really things that people can relate to, right? So this is an activity called Who Dirtied the Water? And it's all about local pollution, like pollution that's specific to your area. And you can create a script. You can create a script to customize it for your location, right? So if I hear about water pollution, like that could have an effect on me. But if I hear about water pollution that's happening in the Boulder Creek or the Left-Hand Canyon Creek that's right across the street, I'm really going to resonate with that because that's something local to me. Or if you could have like common stories or, so just those common and shared experiences can really help folks kind of rally around stuff. So we're getting some other folks joining us. So get back into the main room. Yeah.
I got through 6 NASA resources outside of y'all because you did your own. But I got 6 additional resources. I covered everything 3 times. So.
Oh. I was a sage on the stage and explaining guide on the side, but I think we got through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I did a lot of talking too.
Yeah, sorry, y'all.
And I just wanted to make sure everybody who wanted to come in would get to hear it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had an awesome discussion about different ways to measure impact and get feedback from patrons and things like that. So thank you to everyone who popped into that room and contributed or just listened and lended to the vibe. So thank you.
That's awesome. I wish I was in everyone else's room. I wanted to hear what happened in yours.
Yeah, any highlights, Stephanie or Claire?
Just went over all the StarNet. We have a few people who haven't been to the StarNet website yet. So I really kind of took them on a tour, introduced them to the clearinghouse, showed them some resources. We talked about different resources you can take and put UDL principles and apply them to those, such as our kits.
So I had a pretty small room. I think librarians seem to be doing really well in DEIA. We all can improve in that area, but One of the resources that we discussed, I'm going to drop in the chat, which is a blog that I think of all the resources we talked about had the most. But this is just a list of resources for how to strengthen diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility on a personal level, as a team, so with your closest colleagues as you're developing STEM programs. These are some strategies to help keep in mind as you're developing those. And then on the community level, so how to engage your community in community dialogues, how to leverage partnerships. So feel free to check out that blog. And finally, I'm going to put my email in the chat because this is a very small list and I'm continually adding to it. So any resource that your library has used to help strengthen these areas, whether those are articles, trainings, videos, I would love to take a look at those and add them to our list. So feel free to email them to me and I would love to take a look at them.
Awesome. So we were at the end of our 2-day mini workshop here, and thank you all so much for sticking with us, and I hope everybody got to learn a lot and just hope that it ultimately helps library patrons. 2 things kind of at the end. One question is, how long will we have access to the materials in the Google Classroom? I think for quite a while, but I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, we have yet to delete any of our Google Classrooms, just simply for this reason. However, I will note that if there's a Zoom video that is linked in the classroom, that is dependent upon the 90-day purge cycle from Zoom. So if you want to download that Zoom or you have access to download it, I highly recommend that. Otherwise, the materials will still be there.
Yeah, and Jessica, what we'll do, we'll have the Zoom link as well, but we'll probably upload it to our YouTube page. Maybe cut down the 30 minutes of me eating my Cliff Bar for the first breakout room, but do some slight editing and get it up on, just get the recordings up for you all. So what I'll do, I saw somebody asking about like, hey, we just talked about a lot of resources. Are these gonna be anywhere else? So yeah, we'll put together these resources in one place. I'll post it on the Google Classroom, all the resources that we talked about. Just didn't have quite the chance to do that beforehand. And additionally, so let's see, Claire or Stephanie, would y'all be able to put that certificate of attendance link in the chat if you have it? A survey, our team will be reaching out to you sometime in the summer to see how this has actually helped you, right? So instead of surveying you now about how you think it's gonna help you, we do have some smaller feedback forms, right, in the classroom. But yeah, we'll reach out and we'll say, hey, now that you've done your summer programming, did UDL help you at all? Did this training kind of have any impact on you? Did it change the needle at all? And if it didn't, that's totally fine. We just want you to answer honestly, 100%. So thank you all for that. I'm gonna stick around for a few minutes afterwards. I know a lot of folks have to run, but if you have any questions or anything like that, and also just like, please feel free to reach out about this training. The easiest way, if you need something, might be just to email me or Sina and just say, hey, where was that one resource? Could you help me find the certificate of attendance or something like that? So we're here for you guys. So yeah, anyway, I think that's kind of going to close things out. We are sticking around for a little bit. Thank you all so much. I hope this has been helpful for you. And look for some more, StarNet webinars starting in 2021, and check out the Infiniscope team's wonderful offerings as well.
I did pop a survey link into the chat just to give us your feedback on today's session. So tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see. We do plan on offering these types of things in the future, and your feedback really helps us to tailor it and to modify it so that it's the most useful. So appreciate your feedback.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what everybody's got up their sleeves for this summer, and I'm really excited about the oceanography in 2022. I think that'll be a great chance to, well, for us to talk about NASA resources, but a lot of different avenues you can go there.
We could talk about tails, comet tails.
There you go.
Hey.
Although I remember after the Universe of Stories summer reading theme, some library staff I was talking to, they were like, no, just no more space right now, please.
Never. Space, everything. It's all around us. It's all there.
Yeah, but you didn't have adults fighting over those stupid glasses.
Oh, for the
That
eclipse.
was I had 70-year-old women wanting to take them away from the children that I had saved them for the workshop the day of the eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, standing there looking at me like, you're really going to give that to the 3-year-old? Really?
Yep.
Ooh.
I was in Toccoa, Georgia, at a very small library, and people were just acting so. I was just there to present and to help, and they were being so wild about the eclipse glasses. One guy was like, "You mean to tell me I can't have eclipse glasses for both of my sons?" And I was like, "They're not going to be looking at the whole time. Like, just look for a few seconds and like, I don't know." People got
There were
kinda
some
weird.
of them I wanted to say, oh, you know what? It's not that bad. Just look directly at it.
Oof.
No.
Yeah, I was living in Orlando at the time, and so like I wasn't on the path of totality, but I like completely forgot about it. And I like got home, I was like, crap. So I like Googled and I like punched into the aluminum foil and like held it over the paper, and that's how I watched the eclipse.
The kids we had great activities. We made our own cameras. We did a bunch of really great stuff, like the hours before the actual eclipse. But I'm dead serious. So my director was such a NIMBY. He didn't want to deal with them, so he sent them all downstairs to us, where we were running the programs for the kids, and we wouldn't let them in. We told them we had saved 200 pair for the program, and these 60-year-old women are going, well, we'll sit and listen to the program. And it's like, it's for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not looking forward to the next one. I don't know if I'll be alive then. I'm not sure how often they happen.
2024.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Oh,
2024
yikes.
is the next one.
Well, maybe I'll retire before 2024.
My husband already reserved cabins for us in Oklahoma because
oh, cool.
the farthest in advance we've ever reserved anything. But
I'm surprised you can reserve that far ahead.
Oh,
we called the place and they don't have it on their like online reservation. You can't go that far ahead, but he just called them and was like, is there any chance I could just put my name down? And they're like, sure, we have you down. As soon as it opens, you'll be the first one for this
That's
cabin.
so cool.
Claire, where will you be staying? Whereabouts in Oklahoma?
I can't remember exactly.
Because we're all coming with you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because the totality this time, instead of going from like California to Maine, it's only going from like Washington and then like exiting at Texas, I think. Like kind of the western loop. So the eastern part of the country is kind of screwed on this one.
Yeah.
I think Carbondale, Illinois is the main city that's at the crossroads of both of them.
Yeah,
so
where they get it twice.
Yeah.
I know it's a place if I wasn't in a meeting, I'd go see where he did it. But I do know he researched all the places where it's going to be in the path of totality, and he chose the best weather. And even so, it's still like 60% chance that it'll be cloudy, but it was still the best he could find in all the spots in the totality. So it's somewhere in Oklahoma where it gets decent, like open skies.
It seems like I read something back after that. It was like up in Grove, Oklahoma, kind of up in the panhandle between Missouri and Arkansas, kind of like right up there. It seems like that's heard.
I do remember him saying it's very close to Arkansas.
Yes, that's probably where it's a lovely lake. You should check out Grand Lake, and we've stayed there in cabins. I will tell you though, there are a lot of trees there, so you may have to go but by that time, everybody's going to be in the know and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, he was concerned about that. The pictures of the cabin are very densely forested.
Yes,
areas.
It's lovely. It's lovely there. Well, you'll have to give me a holler when you come to Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you so much. This was great. It was really great. I enjoyed meeting all of you. Hope our paths cross again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me too. It was fun. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, Susan. It's always good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you all too.
Your comments in the chat have been so insightful and helpful for me.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. I was lamenting when I was talking to Steve last night. I was like, oh my gosh, I was talking about executive functioning problems, and it's going to be immortalized on Facebook, on what is it, YouTube, that I struggle with all this stuff. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I forget and I say stuff spontaneously. So
Susan, I could totally cut that out if you wanted me to. Here, why don't we'll take it offline out?
Oh, whoops, sorry. No, it's okay. Actually, I think it's really important to recognize neurodiversity and that people function in different ways. I also just get really anxious. So I was just talking to Steve. I was like, oh, I say stuff and I act like I know these folks and they're my friends. But, I am it's like a WYSIWYG. I am what you see is what you get.
After knowing you for 4 years, Susan, I consider you a friend. So
thank you.
Safe with me.
Same here. Oh, shoot. I had a question, but it totally left my brain. It was about those NASA kits. And